want to say again, welcome everyone to this very important You Can Do It episode. We are, of course, powered by Special Olympics. I am one of your co-hosts and co-producers, Nicolette Stearns. You guys know me as Nick. And of course, a shout out to Jason, our technical director, Donna, our creative consultant. And I can't imagine being on this show without two of the coolest guys around, my co-hosts and co-producers, Adam Hayes and Terrell Limerick. Hey, everybody.
Hey, guys.
Tonight is a very, very important night full of some of the most crucial information that we're going to get all year, and that is all about voting. And that's, of course, on November 3rd. So I would like everyone to give a very warm You Can Do It welcome to Dr. Gilberto Zelyaya, or better known as Dr. Z. He is the Empowerment and Public Information Officer at the Montgomery County Board of Elections. Give him a round of applause. Dr. Z, thank you for, I know you are so busy, as the Terrell and Adam were asking you earlier, you are so busy right now. So again, our gratitude for taking some time out to share this information. Let's get started, Dr. Z, if you can, just kind of giving us your sort of your lowdown on how we can feel empowered to make our vote, whatever that vote is, on November 3rd. So I'm going to turn over the You Can Do It Zoom Square to Dr. Z.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Hopefully everybody's doing well. So yes, it's a very busy season for us, and I appreciate Nick for reaching out and making this space possible. This way, I want to make sure that everyone here has the information to exercise their right to vote. My job at the Board of Elections is to make sure that everyone has access to the opportunity to vote. And in order to do that, the first thing you need to be is registered to vote. Okay, you must be registered before you could actually vote. It's like one of our friends here said that last time he was taking a trip to California. And so before you could get in the plane, you have to buy an airline ticket, right? So before you could register to vote, you must be registered. And in Maryland, you have to be at least 16 years of age to register to vote. You must be a U.S. citizen and registered to vote in the state of Maryland. Now, to vote in this current election, you have to be 18 years of age by November 3rd. And that's the general presidential election day, November 3rd, okay? So if everyone here is at least 18, you can register to vote. And the process is very easy. There's multiple ways to register. You could easily send a text through your cell phone with the word vote, V-O-T-E, to 77788. That's the word vote to 77788. And you must have a Maryland driver's license, a permit, or an NVA ID to apply online. Now, we understand that not everyone has an ID or a driver's license or a permit. So you could go to our website, which is 777vote.org, 777vote.org. And on our website, you could download the voter registration application if you don't have the 3 forms of state ID. And on question 6B, you would provide the last 4 digits of your social security number. And of course, you would put all your information like applying for a job or an application. We need your name, your address, your date of birth, your mailing address, if it's different than your residential address, your affiliation. And because this is the general election in Maryland, in the primaries, you have to be registered either a Democrat or a Republican to vote for one of those candidates. But for the general election, it doesn't matter. It's for the general public. So it doesn't matter your party affiliation. And once you mail in the application, we will process. The voter registration deadline is Tuesday, October 13th. Tuesday, October 13th. That's a very important day, okay? It's about, give and take, about 2 weeks from now, the 13th, and we must receive that application. And if for whatever reason you mail that application on the 13th, as long as at the post office puts a postmark on that envelope that says October 13th, even if we receive it 2 days later, we are obligated to process it, okay? But if you are at least 18 as of today, I highly recommend you register to vote. So remember, October 13th is the voter registration deadline, and you have multiple ways to register. Once again, you could send the word vote to 77788 or jump on our website, 777vote.org. And what I'll do is I'll email all of the links to Nick so you guys could have it as well, okay? And so she could share it with you to see, to make sure that you're all registered. Now, what's also important, every 2 years, you should always update your voter registration, okay? Sometimes you may move, or even if you live in the same apartment building, and let's say you live on the first floor and you're moving to the third floor, for us, that's a totally different address, even if you're in the same building. So you know, even if you move, so your credit card bills and maybe notes from family and friends, they will be forwarded to the new address, but anything that goes out from the Montgomery County Board of Elections or the State Board of Elections will not be forwarded to your new address. It will come back to the office. So for example, last week we mailed something called the sample ballot. And the sample ballot has all the information that you need to prepare to vote on election day or before, okay? And it has all the information about voting by mail, has all the addresses and the locations where you could deposit your ballot if you're voting by mail, but also if you're not voting by mail, where you could vote during early voting or on election day in person, okay? So it has great information. I will also email Nick the link. So in case you accidentally threw this away and you haven't seen it, you could download or you could read it off the internet, okay? So you'll have this information in your hands. Now, so because of COVID-19, you know, this is one of the reasons why we're meeting through this medium virtually. I would have loved to meet you all in person, and hopefully one day I will. So we're doing this virtually because of COVID-19. So we are encouraging our voters to vote by mail. And what does that mean? We will mail the ballot to your home address or wherever you would like for us to mail it to, okay? Now, in order to request to vote by mail, that deadline is Tuesday, October 20th. So it's about 3 weeks from now, October 20th. But if you don't want to wait in line, if you don't want to worry about exposure to COVID-19, you could definitely register to receive an application in the mail, and then you would mail it back to us once you receive it, okay? Now, the difference with this deadline, it's a receive deadline, which means that the Board of Elections, we must have your application in our hands at the office by the 20th. That's a little bit different than the voter registration deadline. The voter registration deadline is a postmark. If the post office puts a seal or a postmark date, we'll accept it 2 or 3 days later. But the vote by mail request, we must have it in-house at the office by the 20th of October. So that's 3 weeks from now, okay, starting tomorrow. Now, what does that mean? We will mail you your ballots with all the instructions. You will have the official ballot, and there's 2 ways to vote. One, we will send you the packet and it has all the information and instructions. Just make sure that you use a black or blue pen and circle the bubbles that correspond to each contest, which is president, there's Congress, there's some ballot questions, school board, judges, etc. And that's why it's important to look at your sample ballot, because that way you could study it before you make any markings on your ballot. Now, once you vote that ballot, okay, there's a document called the voter assistance form. And if, let's say, a friend or a family member helps you fill out those bubbles, you and that individual must fill out that form and send it back to us, because you're giving that person permission to help you. But remember, you have the right to vote independently, But if you do get assistance, you need to fill out that form. And then in the return envelope, you will put your voted ballot and a voter assistance form in that ballot if somebody helps you. And also the return envelope, there's an oath that you have to sign. Make sure you sign that, because if you don't sign that, we will contact you. And if you don't make it back to the office of the Board of Elections by November 3rd, we will not count your ballots. So make sure you sign the return envelope. Do not sign the ballot, because remember, you have the right to vote a secret ballot. So if you write your name on the ballot, it's no longer a secret. We know who you are, and it's going to cancel your vote. So make sure you do not sign the ballot, sign the return envelope. Now, there's also the options of voting by email, electronically. It's called web delivery. And if you select that, the State Board of Elections will email you a password and a login. You'll have to download your ballot in all of the application. Make sure you mail back the ballot and a voter oath, which is a separate sheet. You will put that in your own envelope, because if you vote web delivery, you have to have an envelope, you have to print the ballot, you have to print the instructions, and you have to pay postage, which means you have to buy the stamps. If you do the traditional through the post office, we will give you everything. We'll give you the ballots, the return envelope, and we will pay postage, okay? The issue with web delivery is when we get that ballot that you printed at home, we're going to have to duplicate it because the scanners won't scan that sheet of paper that you mailed to us, okay? So make sure, we prefer that you vote the regular traditional envelope, so when we get it, we get to scan it and we could count your vote as soon as possible. Now, if you are not voting by mail and you want to vote in person, you will have that opportunity from Monday, October 26th through Monday, November 2nd. And that information is also in your sample ballot. It's called early voting. And in Montgomery County, we have 11 early voting locations, okay, throughout the county. And if you live in Clarksburg or Rockville, you don't have to go to the nearest location. You could go to any of those 11 early voting centers from Monday, the 26th of October through Monday, the 2nd of November, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And let's say if for whatever reason you're busy and you're not voting by mail, and for whatever reason you're too busy and you didn't vote during early voting, the last opportunity is on election day, which is Tuesday, November 3rd, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And once again, we have about 40 locations where you could vote on election day. The 11 early voting centers, we will also add the Montgomery County Public High Schools, all of them except Thomas Edison, and the White Oak Community Center, and the Nancy Dasick Community Center, and the Marriott Conference Center in Rockville or North Bethesda. So we have a total of 40 locations where you could vote in person on election day, but we would prefer that you vote by mail. But if you do want to vote during early voting, you have more opportunities because it's over 8 days. Also, what's great about voting in person is that if you want to vote independently, we have a machine called the ballot marking device, which is a touch screen. And if you want to, you could listen to the audio in English or Spanish. You could speed up the audio or you could slow it down. You could magnify the ballots. If you have any friends that maybe are blind, they can use the keypad that has Braille and they can listen to the audio and they could vote independently, because being independent is very important, and your ballot should be your secret. It's your business, who you vote for and how you vote for them. But if you need assistance, we also have volunteers at the early voting locations and on election day that could help you, especially if English or Spanish is not your first language. We have volunteers that could assist you, okay? So I know there's a lot of information, but what's important is you have to be registered to vote, and the deadline is October 13th, and that's a postmark deadline. And if you want to vote by mail, that deadline is the 20th of October, and that's a receive deadline. We must have it at the office so we could process, and it gives us enough time to mail you your ballot. Also, we're going to have 50 drop boxes throughout Montgomery County where you could deposit your ballots. And all of the information is also listed in the sample ballot. And I'll send Nick the link so you can see all of the locations where the ballot drop boxes will be available. And make sure you look at the date in which they're going to be installed. So for example, today we installed the different boxes in different parts of the county in East County. So we don't want you to show up at a location that doesn't have a drop box, okay? So make sure that if, let's say you live in East County in Silver Spring, the Silver Spring Civic Building, the Wheaton High School, the Praiser Community Center, the White Oak Senior and Community Center, Springbrook High School, all of those were installed today. And tomorrow we're going to install Damascus and Bower Park in Gaithersburg, and we're going to install different locations. So make sure you look at your sample ballots so you don't show up at a ballot drop box that doesn't exist. You're going to be upset with me, but I want you to make sure that we're going to install them all, but because they're really big boxes, we have to do it one by one because we're putting, the boxes are under 24-hour surveillance, and we need to make sure that the cameras and they're visible by the public and that the cameras have full visibility so nobody messes with those boxes, okay? So I know there's a lot of information that I covered, but what's important is that you register to vote, that you make a decision whether you want to vote in person or through the mail. We encourage you to vote by mail because there's going to be lines, and I don't like lines. So I'm voting by mail, and it's very secure, it's very safe, and so you know, voting by mail has been used since the War of 1812 and during the Civil War. So for over 150 years, voting by mail has taken place in the United States. Okay, so it's very safe and it's secure. Any questions, maybe?
That was amazing. First, can we give a round of applause to Dr. Z?
Okay.
Wow, Dr. Z, thank you so much. And I really appreciate, I know you're going to send those links and Jason will get everything out to everybody. Let's jump right in. I know Adam's got a question and Terrell's got some questions. And then everybody on this call, I can tell we've got lots of questions. Hold your questions. We will get to you, I promise. All right, let's jump in. Adam, let's start with you. You were going to ask Dr. Z a question. And remember, can you unmute? Adam has the Zoom square.
My question was, how are the votes counted?
So, great question. So what we're going to do is, if you vote by mail, starting October 6th, because right now we have almost, I think we're going to have about more than 300,000 voters voting by mail. And so we can't wait until the last minute to start canvassing or counting those ballots. So starting October 6th, every day, we're going to canvass or start counting all of the ballots that come back to the Board of Elections. So on election night, which is November 3rd, once the state of Maryland says that all of the early voting centers have closed, we're going to release all of the mail-in ballots that we've canvassed or counted all the way from October 6th through November 3rd. So that's about a month worth of thousands and thousands of mail-in ballots. Then we're going to release all of the votes cast during early voting, which was from the 26th of October through November 2nd. And the last counts we're going to release to the public will be votes made by voters who voted in person on November 3rd. So we're going to have a snapshot of who voted for whom, right? But definitely it's going to take us most likely the entire month of November to finish counting all of the mail-in ballots. But we're hoping that you'll have a good picture of what voters want, what's their desire. But the goal is by the end of November, we are going to finish because we do want to spend time with our families.
Great. And my other question was, where can we learn about the candidates?
Good question. So we don't provide that information. All of the candidates in the contest are going to be in your sample ballots. Now, if you want information about their thoughts and maybe their position or beliefs, the League of Women Voters, they have a really great resource. I believe is 411.org. But they have everything online, and it talks about the candidates, what they believe in, who they are, and also has summary on the ballot questions, because sometimes the ballot questions, they don't make sense in English, they won't make sense in Spanish also. So the League of Women Voters, that's a good resource for you to do your homework about the different candidates and the different questions. Great questions, Adam.
Okay, thank you, Adam. That was awesome. Terrell, I'd like to turn the Zoom square over to you.
How is voting by mail is different than voting by in person?
Great question, Terrell. Actually, for me that I work at the Board of Elections, it's no different. It still counts as your vote. Now, as a voter, it's different because maybe you're used to going to a precinct or a building where other people will be in line waiting to vote. But for me, at the end of the day, if you vote by mail or if you vote by person, it doesn't matter. It still counts. And what matters is that you actually vote.
and my other question is, Dr. Z, during the president election, is there a lot of voting fraud?
Good question. No. So I've been working at the Board of Elections since 2003, and I've been a voter since last century,
Wow,
1990. And so,
wow.
we had electricity back then too. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I believe so. I hope so.
But no, there's no voter fraud. What I've seen is sometimes voters will make mistakes, or the poll worker may make a mistake, but there's no voter fraud. There's been myths that there's voter fraud, and from my point of view in Montgomery County, no. So please, I want you to trust us. We work for you, and we will do everything in our power to ensure that you vote and that you exercise your right to vote. I just need for you to make a vote plan and make sure that you make a plan to either vote in person or by mail. We prefer by mail. And if you do vote by mail, to vote the traditional ballot through the mail. We'll mail it to you. And then once you've voted that ballot, you can use the ballot drop boxes. If you have any concerns with the post office, okay, you can use the ballot drop boxes, and there's 50 of them across Montgomery County, okay?
Wow. Okay, Dr. Z, I will vote by mail. That's awesome.
Thank you, Terrell and Adam. Those were fantastic questions. I like to go ahead and open this up. I see so many wonderful hands up, and I know we've got several people already. Let's jump in and start with Elena, and then after Elena, we'll go to Stephanie. Elena, you got the Zoom square for Dr. Z.
My question is, well, one thing I've done in the past with voting is once we've gotten our sample ballots in the mail, my dad would help me go read over the ballot questions, because I'm sure, and it's not just me, but a lot of people are reading it, and it might as well just be the Charlie Brown, like wah, 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 wah. You don't understand what it is they're saying. So I asked him, to help me kind of explain what they're asking, and then we all will bubble in our sample ballot. And then we would bring it with us to the polling place, just so we can have like a quick reference back to, okay, I know which one I was going to vote, just so that way, because, I don't vote for something I wasn't going to vote for, and I can just have a reference guide. But I was just wondering, does this count as voter's assistance or no?
Yes, actually, great question. The sample ballot is a form that we are assisting you, and you're correct. And the reason the sample ballot, that's what it is. It's a sample. It's like when you go to Costco or Sam's Club, they give you a sample of something and you really don't know, or maybe ice cream. You're like, I like Rocky Road, but can I get a sample? And you taste it. And then if you don't like it, you're not wasting your money. So that's good. So the sample ballot, there's a page that has your actual ballot. And that's exactly what you stated, Alana. You make your markings, you make your selections on the sample ballot. So when you get the official ballot, you're least likely to make a mistake. And all you're doing is copying what you did at home when you did your research. And then that way, if you do vote in person, your experience is quicker because you're prepared. And because you're prepared, you will check in, you'll get your ballot, or you could use the touchscreen, the ballot marking device, and make selections with the touchscreen. Either way, they both will get scanned. And because you're prepared, your experience will go much quicker. So good suggestion.
Wow. Thank you, Elena. That was awesome. Let's go to Stephanie. You've got the Zoom square for Dr. Z.
Hi, Dr. Z. Thank you for
Hi.
being here tonight.
My pleasure.
And I have a question. Does it matter if you're a Democrat or Republican? Can you vote for whoever presidential candidate who you feel is best of choice?
Great question, Stephanie. Correct. So for the general election is for the general public. You could be a Republican, you could be a Democrat, you could be unaffiliated, you could be part of the Bread and Roses Party or the Working Party. It doesn't matter your party affiliation. The only time that it matters is during the primary. So
and why is that?
Yeah, and that primary already passed. It was in June, so don't worry about that one. Now, focus on the general election, and that's a great question. Since it's for the general public, your party affiliation doesn't matter. You could vote for whomever you want, and you could cross party lines. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
All right. Thank you,
Right.
Dr. Z.
Great
Thank
question.
you, Stephanie. That was a great question. All right,
Thank
Justin, you're up. And then we have Willie after Justin. Justin's got the square.
What's the best way to vote?
Okay, so best way to vote. Okay, so as a voter, you have multiple options. So you could vote by mail, and you would apply, and we would process that application, and we will mail you your ballot, or you could vote in person. Whichever you decide, just realize that if you vote by mail, you would be home, you're in the comfort of your house, you'll have your loved ones to help you if they need to, and then you can mail back our ballot through the post office, or you could deposit in the ballot drop boxes. Now, if you vote in person, you're gonna have to wait in line, and then when it's your turn to check in, the judges will be there to assist you, to give you the information. And if you need assistance, you could also ask for it. So whatever your heart desire, you could choose in person or by mail. We say by mail because that way we guarantee 0 lines. You will not be waiting in line. But if you vote in person, I can't promise you that there would not be a line during early voting or on election day. And the safest way really is by voting from home.
Okay. Also, when do we officially find out who the next president is?
Great question. So even though we're going to start canvassing or counting all of the mail-in ballots, on election night for Maryland, we may not have a winner because every state is different, right? So what's going to happen is we're going to continue to count the ballots until we've counted all of the ballots. And then we will provide the results to the Maryland State Board of Elections. And they're going to get the results from Prince George's County, Montgomery County, Baltimore County. There's 24 counties and Baltimore City. And once the state collects all of the votes, they're going to share the outcome with the Electoral College. And then the Electoral College will announce who is the winner, especially for the contest of presidents. And that's called a contest. It's a ballot contest, right? It's almost like a race.
Yeah.
But then we also have Congress, we have school board, we have some ballot questions that are local. So depending, if you're interested in wondering who's going to win the presidency or the vice presidency, we're not going to have anything November 3rd, maybe closer by December, but it all depends on the math. let's say hypothetically, we still have to count 100,000 ballots. And the difference between the candidates is 100,000. We cannot say with certainty that this person won. So it's gonna take some time. What's important is if you're voting by mail, return your ballot as soon as possible so we could start counting it October 6th.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. That was great. All right, we've got Willie, Joe, Jason, and Derek. So Willie, you are next.
Well, we really appreciate about how we can do registry for voting. So my question is this. How far in advance of November 3rd that we must send out mail-in ballots?
Great question, Willie. So as I mentioned earlier, because there's a lot of people voting by mail, the second you get your mail-in ballot, please vote it and return it back to us as soon as possible so we can start counting. So the sooner you return your ballot, so let's say you applied and you get your ballot, let's say tomorrow, September 29th. If you wait all the way until November 3rd, that's more than a month that you're gonna make us wait until we could count your ballot. So the sooner you send your mail-in ballot, the more results we will have to share with the public. But if you're waiting until November 3rd, you make sure you give that to the postmaster before 5 p.m. if you go to the post office, and that they put a seal that says November 3rd. Because if you put that ballot, let's say in one of those blue collection bins in the corner or near your home, you don't know, let's say it says the last pickup is 5 p.m. and you deposit it at 8 p.m., guess what? That ballot won't be picked up until the next day, which is November 4th. And once we get it, we're not gonna count it because it's late, it's not timely. It's gonna be late. So make sure you don't wait until November 3rd to mail it back to us. Mail it back to us as soon as possible.
Yeah, I want to mail in my ballot, especially when I want to go and do an online voting, but I get this. What about other adding drive-through voting so that people can feel safe remaining in their vehicles?
Okay, so great question. So the boxes that we purchased from a vendor, only 2 of them are drive-through voting. So there's the one at the Rockville City Hall and the one that's at the Executive Office Building. Now, the problem was we need to buy big boxes, the big bins, and they don't come with a little opening to shoot like for drive-through, okay? So it is an inconvenience, but you have to remember in the past, a lot of barriers were created for voters not to vote. And it's so weird because sometimes they would have a bar of soap and they would tell them how many bubbles will this bar of soap produce in order to register to vote, which is not fair. It's impossible to know. So the reason I'm telling you this, only 2 of the boxes are drive-through, but the least you could do if you drive, you have to park, or if somebody takes you and you have to get out your vehicle. Just like when you go to the supermarket to buy eggs, there's no drive-through supermarket to buy food. Okay, so you're gonna have to get out your car and walk to the ballot drop box. And maybe for 2022, we could buy some that have a drive-through option, but right now only 2 of them have the drive-through option. We apologize for the inconvenience, but I think it's more important that you get to vote and you get to deposit it into the box. So you're gonna have to get out your car and you're gonna have to walk.
Thank you, Willie. That was great. Joe, you're up.
Question number 1. They say what for? Can you explain to me this issue? Question number 1 by this book.
Oh, you got the sample ballot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So when it comes to the questions on the sample ballot,
Yes.
our job is to print them. Our job is to make sure that you have access to them and that we have them at the voting locations if you vote in person. We cannot tell you what they mean or what they say. So unfortunately, but I want to share with Nick, you could contact the League of Women Voters, and there's a publication that will explain each ballot questions and what for or against means and how it'll affect the question depending on how you support it or not.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
My second question in case somebody and come from, in instances, somebody like a working diplomat, go to different country, and like I'm accounting like a couple diplomat people work in the embassy, how to go to vote, can get a voting.
Are you saying, Joe, if they're not in the country, how
Right.
do they, like an
You go to the
absentee voter? Is that
Yeah.
what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead,
Yeah.
Dr. Z.
Yes. So for example, if any citizen around the world, so let's make believe, so Joe, where's your family from?
I come from Taiwan. My sister.
Taiwan. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so make believe, Joe, you went on vacation, okay,
Right.
to Taiwan, and it's the election. If you know that you're going to be in Taiwan,
Right.
then you could request the Board of Elections to mail your ballot to Taiwan,
Oh,
or
okay.
to send it to you as a web delivery ballot, and you will print it from home or from your family or wherever you're at, Taiwan, France, Puerto Rico, and then you can mail it back to us, and we will still count it. So that's why whether we mail it to you in Rockville or Taiwan, it doesn't matter, but do it early so it gives enough time to make it to Taiwan. Or you could do the web delivery and you could just print it from Taiwan and you don't have to wait for it to arrive. You could just print it and send it back. The military, they do that. A lot of them are military men and women, are service men and women who are in Afghanistan and Iraq and Europe. They print their ballot and they send it back.
How about Kuwait?
Kuwait too, all over, even Antarctica, my friend. It doesn't matter where you're at. We will mail it to you, or you could print it and mail it back. And as long as it has the date stamp of November 3rd, we will count it.
Joe, that was a fantastic question.
Great question.
Two fantastic questions. Thank you, Joe. Jason, thank you for being so patient. You have the Zoom square. What's your question for Dr. Z?
This is Jason's mom. Dr. Z, I'd like to ask you, Jason received his, we put in for web delivery for his ballot because of all the hoopla with the post office, and because I had a sample where my birthday cards came like 15 days afterwards that people had postmarked them. So I said, okay, we're not going to do that. We'll do web delivery for you. I'll go in person. So it came today, but I read in the Washington Post yesterday that there was some concern about the ballots because you couldn't read them well, and so they would take much longer to count. So I was worried about that, and whether can we switch back to a mail-in? But also, you said we have to put in our own envelope, right? And we have to sign the envelope. Where do we sign where does he sign the envelope?
So no, so the problem we had with the Washington Post, sometimes they make it more difficult for us to do our work.
Yeah, it sounded awful.
Yeah, I know. And I had an issue. I called them personally, especially the editor, because in a way, words are very powerful.
Uh-huh.
And I feel they do a disservice by scaring people.
Right.
And so the web delivery, look, you have it in your hand. You print it. It should be 10 pages, which includes your ballot and all the instructions.
Okay.
So don't worry about it. It's our job to duplicate it. So don't worry about that. Okay. For the next election, if you do web delivery, get the regular post office in the mail. It works perfectly fine. Okay. Now, the second part of your question, there's going to be, I believe, a voter oath that Jason will need to sign, right?
Okay.
And if you assist Jason, you will need to sign what is called the voter assistance form. It's a separate form.
Is that going to be with his web one, or I have to print that?
Yes, when you print it, it should be a total of 10 pages. There's like a checklist. There's a voter assistance form. There's the voter oath. And then there's explanations. There's also a listing of where all the ballot drop boxes and the installation dates, which should mirror what's published in the sample ballot.
Okay.
And then the actual ballot. It should be, I believe 6 pages or 5 pages. I forgot. So he will vote the ballot, and if you assist him, then both of you will fill out the voter assistance form. Okay. And then Jason will fill out the voter, it's called the absentee voter oath. Okay. And the 2 sheets of paper, the voter assistance, the voter oath, and the multiple ballot pages that he will fill out. You will provide your own envelope.
Okay.
You will insert it, and obviously put the return PO box that's listed on the instructions.
Right.
And make sure you put your return address, because we always have it. And then I believe that it says you need to put he needs to put his voter identification number on the envelope.
Okay.
And he needs to write, I believe, mail-in absentee ballots on the outside of the envelope.
Okay.
And then you could just use one of the ballot drop boxes. So may I ask, where in Montgomery County do you live?
No, I'm in Howard.
Oh, you're Howard County. Okay, so you will send it to the Howard County Board of Elections.
Just take it right there.
Yes, great. And then just use the ballot drop box, okay? But just make sure that it's installed, because every county has different amounts of, we have 50. I don't know how many Howard County has, but just follow their instructions. And then you will provide the ballot, and Howard County will duplicate Jason's ballot. So don't worry about the duplication. We got you covered, and you have the ballot in hand.
Thank you. I was worried about that.
No. We got you. Don't worry about it. Howard County has less. We have to duplicate over 32,000 ballots. Howard County, I think, is much less than that.
Thank you, Dr. Z.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Good luck.
Thank
Good
you.
job,
Great
Jason.
question.
Great question.
All right, we have time for one more question. And I think that's what we have. We've got Derek, who's been waiting. Thank you, Derek, for your patience. You have the Zoom square.
Okay. Hi, Dr. Z. How you
Hey,
doing?
Derek, what's up? How are you?
Pretty good. So my question is, if we voted online, would there be like a limited amount of hours I could do with the regular voting, or can we vote any time?
Great question. So if you request to vote by mail, per se, like what I did, or if you request a web delivery ballot like Jason did, you need to vote that. Now, if you do show up in person, you're going to have to vote what is called a provisional ballot, because we don't know if maybe you mailed your ballot, or even if you show the poll worker, the volunteer, your ballot and say, I want to vote in person, because we have prepared all of the equipment, you're going to have to vote provisional. And depending on the county you live, you're going to add an additional 30 minutes to your experience once you check in. So if you request to vote by mail, this is for everyone, not just for Derek. If you want to vote by mail and you submit that application, please follow through and vote that ballot. But you have every right to change your mind. Just be aware that you're going to wait a little bit extra once you check in, and we will give you a provisional ballot. There's an envelope that you need to sign and fill out. And then we will do the research at the office, and we will know that, Derek didn't return his mail-in ballots. He voted provisionally, and then we will accept the provisional ballots, okay? However, if you mail your mail-in ballot, if you return your ballots, and then you vote in person, a provisional ballot, you're trying to break the law. And I know you don't want to do that, but you only could vote once. You cannot vote twice, only once, okay? So please, if you request to vote by mail, vote that ballot and do not show up in person.
Okay. Derek, does that answer your question? Yeah, perfect.
Is that a good question?
Awesome. You guys had such extraordinary questions tonight. I know I learned a lot. Can we give a round of applause to Dr. Z? And the one thing too that's really, really important here, everybody, is that everybody exercise their right to vote. So whatever way feels right for you and where you are in your life right now, do it, because every voice is vital and every voice needs to be heard. So the takeaway tonight is we'll get all the links, we'll walk it through, you'll figure out from everything Dr. Z said what works best for you and your family. But the most important thing, everybody, is thumbs up for voting, right? Absolutely. So thank you, Dr. Z. This was incredibly helpful. We are so appreciative of your time. And Terrell, can you start to lead us out?
Come back in 2 weeks. We will be here on Zoom.
And remember, bring your ideas and questions. And until next time, stay positive.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. November 3rd. All right. Thanks, Dr.
Bye,
Z.
everyone.
Good job. Thank you, Nick. I'll see you.